Have you ever scrolled through your phone, seen everyone else out with their friends, and that quiet voice in your head whispers, "What's wrong with me?" We live in a world that constantly celebrates connection, so feeling like you're on the outside looking in can deeply feel like a personal failure. We're told we need a squad, a tribe, a network to be happy. But what if that feeling of isolation isn't a sign that you're broken? What if it's actually a message? This isn't just about being alone. This is about understanding why. And for that, we turn to the work of the pioneering psychologist Carl Jung. He offered a surprising and profoundly different perspective. He believed that a period of solitude wasn't necessarily empty. It could be one of the most fertile and important periods of your entire life, a crucial signal from your inner self about the person you are meant to become. It's important to start by making a crucial distinction, because we often use the words loneliness and solitude as if they're the same thing, but they feel completely different in your heart. Loneliness is a painful ache, a feeling of being disconnected against your will. It's looking out the window and feeling like the world is passing you by, a deep yearning for a connection that just isn't there. It's heavy and it hurts. Solitude, on the other hand, is something entirely different. It's the quiet peace you might feel on a long walk by yourself, or the deep focus of getting lost in a project you love with no one around. It's a chosen state, one that feels restorative and, in its own way, deeply connected, just connected to yourself instead of to others. When we talk about having no friends, we often immediately jump to the framework of loneliness, and that's a valid and real pain for many. But the pioneering psychologist Carl Jung invites us to look at this experience through a different, more intriguing lens. He was far less concerned with the simple number of people in your life and was utterly fascinated by the why behind your social patterns. For Jung, everything in our psyche has a purpose, even the difficult and confusing parts. He believed that our inner world is constantly trying to guide us toward wholeness, a process he called individuation, which is essentially the journey of becoming the truest, most complete version of yourself by integrating all the parts you've been ignoring or hiding away. So, if you find yourself in a season of life with fewer friends, or even no friends at all, Jung wouldn't necessarily see it as a social failure. Instead, he might ask, what is this space trying to create? What part of you is asking for attention that can only be heard in the quiet? This is why today, we're not just talking about the surface-level experience of being alone. We're going to explore what Carl Jung believed your solitude might be trying to tell you about your unconscious self. We'll delve into why this period of your life, as challenging and confusing as it may feel, might not be a curse, but a hidden gift, a crucial and potentially transformative chapter that could set the stage for a more authentic and fulfilling life than you ever thought possible. To really understand what might be happening when we find ourselves alone, we need to dive into the heart of Jung's work, which is the concept of individuation. Now, that's a big word, but its meaning is profoundly simple and deeply human. Think of it not as some complex psychological term, but as the natural, lifelong process of becoming who you were always meant to be. It's about gathering up all the scattered pieces of yourself, the parts you're proud of, the parts you're ashamed of, the talents you've nurtured, and the ones you've neglected, the personality you show at work, and the one you keep hidden at home, and slowly, patiently, weaving them into a complete and whole person. It's the journey from who you were told to be to who you truly are. This isn't about self-improvement in the typical sense. It's about self-discovery and integration, about making the unconscious conscious. And this is where the need for solitude becomes not just understandable, but essential. This process of individuation is perhaps the most personal work you will ever do. It's an internal conversation, a deep and sometimes difficult dialogue with yourself that requires uninterrupted space to unfold. You simply cannot do this kind of work while constantly managing the expectations, opinions, and noise of a busy social life. Jung saw modern society, with its endless distractions and social performances, as the biggest obstacle to this crucial inner work. It's like trying to hear a faint, beautiful piece of music playing softly in the distance while you're standing in the middle of a roaring, crowded concert. You strain to hear it, but the noise of the crowd is just too overwhelming. The constant ping of notifications, the pressure to attend events, the energy it takes to maintain conversations, it all adds up to a cacophony that drowns out that inner music. Solitude, then, is the conscious decision to step out of that noisy concert hall. It's the quiet, still space where you can finally hear your own melody, your own thoughts, your own voice without any interference. So, if you have withdrawn from social circles, or if you've always found them draining and difficult to maintain, Jung would offer a radical reframe. This is not necessarily an antisocial act. It is, in fact, a profoundly pro-self one. It might be your psyche's way of forcing you into the quiet room you need to finally listen. It's a calling to strip away the roles you play for others. The good friend, the reliable employee, the agreeable family member, and ask the much scarier, more important question: who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when I'm not performing? This withdrawal isn't a rejection of connection. It's a necessary retreat to build a stronger, more authentic foundation for yourself, so that any future connections you make will be based on your genuine self, not on a persona you constructed to please the world. It's the universe, or your own soul, creating the conditions for you to finally come home to yourself. This leads us to one of Jung's most powerful and challenging ideas: the shadow. This isn't a monster lurking in a dark alley. It's something much closer to home. Think of your shadow as the entire hidden basement of your personality. It's where we instinctively lock away all the parts of ourselves that we've been taught are unacceptable, embarrassing, or dangerous. This isn't just about bad things like anger, jealousy, or pettiness, though it certainly includes those. It can also be positive traits we felt we had to hide, like our creativity because it seemed impractical, our power because it intimidated others, or our sensitivity because it was called weakness. The shadow is everything we are, but refuse to be. We rarely let this content stay quietly in the basement. It's uncomfortable to have it there, so without realizing it, we project it out onto the world, especially onto other people. This is where it gets really interesting for our relationships. That friend whose arrogance you can't stand? That colleague whose need for constant validation drives you up the wall? According to Jung, the intense irritation you feel is often a clue. It's frequently a sign that you are seeing a disowned part of yourself reflected back at you. You're projecting your own unrecognized arrogance or your own hidden need for approval onto them. The same mechanism is at play when we find ourselves in a pattern of attracting the same kind of dramatic or unhealthy partners or friends. We are unconsciously drawn to people who express the very energies we have buried within ourselves, as if they are acting out a play written by our own unconscious. So, what happens when you remove other people from the equation? This is where a period of having no friends can reveal its unexpected purpose. When there's no one else around to be the screen for your projections, the movie has to stop. The irritation, the judgments, the attractions, they lose their external targets. You are left alone in the quiet, and the only person left to look at is yourself. This isolation can act as an unconscious, yet brilliant, strategy orchestrated by your own psyche to break that cycle. It forces you to turn inward and finally confront what has been living in your basement. That critical voice you once aimed at others now has nowhere to go but to examine its own origins. This isn't meant to be a punishment. It's a difficult but necessary step toward integration. The message in this kind of solitude is that you are being given a profound opportunity to meet your shadow, to stop seeking out others to act out your inner drama, and to finally reclaim those lost parts of yourself. It's about healing the internal splits so that you can eventually engage in relationships based on wholeness, not on unconscious projection. Now, let's talk about the mask. Jung called this the persona, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it's essential for navigating daily life. Think of it as the social skin you wear. It's the role of the good employee when you're at work, the dependable friend when someone needs help, or the easygoing funny one in a group. We all have these masks, and they help society function smoothly. The problem isn't that we have a persona. The danger begins when we forget we're wearing one. We start to believe that the mask is who we truly entirely are. We over-identify with it, and in doing so, we slowly lose touch with the much more complex, real person living behind it. This becomes especially exhausting within friendships. When your social connections are built around a persona, a subtle anxiety sets in. You feel you must constantly perform to live up to the role others expect you to play. The funny friend can never have a quiet, sad day. The listener can never ask for help themselves. It becomes a cage of your own making, and the energy required to maintain the facade is immense. It leaves you feeling drained, lonely even in a crowd, and deeply inauthentic because you know, on some level, that if these people truly knew you, they might not like what they see. This fear keeps the mask glued on even tighter. So, what does it mean when you step back from these friendships, either consciously or because life has simply pulled you away? Often, it's a sign that the old mask is cracking. The persona you built for yourself in your 20s, or in your last job, or within a certain group, no longer fits the person you are now subconsciously becoming. It feels tight, constricting, and false. Withdrawing, then, isn't a failure to maintain relationships. It can be a necessary and courageous act of disintegration. The old, false self has to die, and that can be a scary, lonely process to make room for the true self to finally emerge. This is why you might feel like you're in a weird, in-between space. You're not who you were, but you're not yet who you will be. You have outgrown your old skin, and a new one hasn't yet formed. This transitional cocoon is a vulnerable but utterly crucial stage. The message here is that you don't have friends right now not because you are incapable of friendship, but because you are in a sacred period of shedding. You are making yourself unavailable for the old inauthentic performances so that you can discover what an authentic connection might actually feel like, from a place of wholeness, not from behind a mask. It's so important to pause here and make a vital distinction. While Jung's perspective on solitude is deeply empowering, offering a meaningful narrative for our alone time, we must be careful not to romanticize a state that can, for many, be a source of genuine pain. Jung's insights are a lens for understanding, not a prescription to endure suffering. There is a world of difference between what we might call a spiritual solitude and the crushing weight of chronic loneliness. One can feel like a quiet, if sometimes challenging, journey inward. The other feels like a desperate longing for an outward connection that remains painfully out of reach. This is a moment for gentle, honest self-reflection. Ask yourself, what is the quality of your alone time? Does it, on the whole, feel purposeful? Even if it's difficult, does it have a sense of intention behind it? Are you using this space to learn, to create, to journal, to understand yourself better? Do you find moments of peace and even richness in your own company? Or does it primarily feel empty, hollow, and aching? Is there a constant, yearning craving for connection that is accompanied by a feeling that you are somehow blocked or unable to achieve it? Does the silence feel heavy with self-judgment or anxiety rather than curious and open? Your honest answer to this question is your compass. Understanding this difference is everything. The Jungian concept of purposeful solitude is ultimately a temporary stage of incubation. It's a winter season that prepares the ground for a new spring. It has a sense of movement, even if that movement is internal and slow. However, if your isolation is rooted not in a call to adventure but in fear, past trauma, social anxiety, or depression, that is an entirely different matter. These are not messages from the soul awaiting deciphering. They are wounds that need compassionate attention and active healing. In this case, seeking connection, support, and professional help is not a failure to do your inner work. It is the most important inner work you can do. It's about building the foundation of safety and self-worth that any future journey of individuation must be built upon. Honoring your psyche means listening to its pain as attentively as you listen to its call. So if this resonates, if you see your own experience in these ideas, the natural question is, what do I actually do? How do I move from simply being alone to consciously engaging with this alchemical process of turning isolation into individuation? The goal isn't to just wait it out, but to actively participate in your own unfolding. This is about becoming an archaeologist of your own soul, gently brushing away the dust to see what treasures have been buried there all along. The first and perhaps most powerful tool is to begin a dialogue with yourself. We spend so much time in internal monologues, often critical ones. Instead, try turning it into a conversation. This is what Jung called active imagination. It doesn't need to be mystical or complicated. It can be as simple as picking up a journal and asking a part of yourself a question, maybe your anxiety, your anger, or that creative spark you've been ignoring, and then writing down whatever response comes, without judgment. Let your intuition speak. You can draw the feeling, meditate on it, or just talk it out on a walk. You are opening a line of communication with the parts of you that your conscious mind usually overlooks or suppresses. Pay close attention to your dreams. In our hyper-rational world, it's easy to dismiss them as nonsense, but Jung saw them as direct, unfiltered telegrams from the unconscious. They are the language your inner self uses to communicate things your waking mind isn't ready to hear. Start keeping a notebook by your bed. The moment you wake up, before you check your phone or even get out of bed, jot down whatever fragments you remember. An image, a feeling, a character, a color. Over time, patterns will emerge. You don't need to be an expert at interpretation. The simple act of recording them and asking, "What might this be trying to show me?" signals to your psyche that you are listening, and the messages will often become clearer. Another profoundly transformative practice is to create something with no intention of ever showing it to another living soul. Write a poem only you will read. Paint a picture and then put it away, or even throw it out. Build a model, tend a garden, compose a song on an app. When you remove the audience, you remove the pressure of the persona. You are no longer creating for likes, for approval, or to fit an identity. You are creating as an act of pure self-expression, a conversation between you and your soul. This is where you discover what you truly find beautiful, meaningful, and intriguing, separate from the expectations of the outside world. And perhaps most challenging in our modern era, allow yourself to be genuinely bored. Resist the immediate urge to fill every moment of silence with a podcast, a scroll, or a video. Sit with the discomfort. Stare out the window. Go for a walk without headphones. It is in these seemingly empty spaces that the mind, freed from consuming external content, is finally able to generate its own. It begins to make connections, to process, and to reveal insights that were drowned out by the constant noise. This is not wasted time. It is the fertile ground where your own inner voice can finally take root and grow. All of these practices are ways to reframe the entire narrative of this chapter of your life. The cultural story tells us we are falling behind, missing out, failing to keep up. The Jungian story invites us to see it differently. You are not falling behind. You are falling into yourself. You are answering a call that, though it may feel isolating, is ultimately leading you toward a more authentic and whole version of who you are. This isn't a detour from life. It is the very heart of the journey. It's crucial to remember that this journey of solitude, this deep dive into the self, is not meant to be a final destination. The ultimate goal of individuation isn't to become a permanent hermit, isolated from the world. That would be to trade one kind of prison for another. The true purpose is one of transformation and return. It's about using this time to forge a stronger, more authentic and integrated self, so that when you do step back out into the world of relationships, you do so from a place of wholeness. Your future connections won't be built on a foundation of neediness, using others to fill a void you feel inside, or of projection, seeing in them only what you haven't faced in yourself. Instead, they can be based on genuine connection, the choice to share your complete self with another complete self in all its beautiful, imperfect humanity. So, if you take nothing else from this, please hold on to this. Your worth and value as a person are not, and never will be, determined by the number of friends in your phone or invitations in your inbox. This period of your life, as challenging and lonely as it may feel in moments, might not be a curse at all. It might be the very preparation you needed, the quiet incubation period required to ready you for the deepest, most meaningful, and most authentic connections of your life. The kind of connections we all truly crave. Be gentle with yourself, but also be curious. Lean into the quiet instead of constantly fighting to escape it. Listen to what this isolation might be trying to tell you. Ask it questions. Approach yourself with the interest and compassion you would offer a fascinating stranger. Because in doing so, you might just finally meet the most important person you'll ever know, your true, unfiltered, and whole self. And that relationship is the one that makes all other relationships possible.